feel that racism is a condition that people can never overcome. I believe that as a whole, we can never go back in time and erase the injustice and the cruelties that were done to minorities. So, as long as we feel the effects of that, I feel that racism is inevitable. Years ago, I was about 7 months pregnant when I had my first encounter with racism. I was walking in a rainstorm about to cross the street, and a pickup truck came down the road, had a Confederate flag hanging out the window, and there were two Caucasian men inside. When they see me, they proceeded to speed to try to hit me with the truck. It was raining, I was pregnant, I almost fell, and they yelled, "Run, nigger, run. You monkey nigger, get across the street." And they proceeded to chase me with the truck. Up until then, and at the time I believe I was about 22 years old, I had never experienced, I knew racism exists, but I had never felt the impact of it. It forever changed the scope of how I viewed the problem. I think that racism playing a part in drug trafficking is very evident when you look at the vast majority of minorities that are incarcerated versus Caucasians. We all know that addiction is not a condition that has a color, and we all know that all races are being affected by it. So why is it that so many African Americans are incarcerated while Caucasians are not?
Do to improve minorities' benefits when it comes to health care on the war on drugs and in communities. And I think we have to really think outside of the box. And there's so many factors in terms of what contributes to people using drugs, what contributes to people seeking help, what contributes to um, access to health care and funding. And what we know is that the supportive systems that used to be in place to help people are basically being chiseled away. So you have people who are on the fringes who really need that catchment area of help and support for health care and treatment and just overall benefits. You have people who just aren't doing well. And so I think in terms of improving healthcare outcomes for these folks, we have to think about improving everything. We have to improve education. We have to improve access to care. And that doesn't mean that might mean having urgent care or community health centers that have non-traditional hours for people, or that might mean that with the Affordable Care Act now everyone has to have insurance, but we have to at least have another way to streamline or allow people access to getting help or getting treatment. And we can't not think about other ways that people do receive care. So it's not always a professional outlet that some communities use in order to understand or figure out what's happening. We have to embrace those and see what people are using and see who people trust and jump on the bandwagon there, and that will encourage people to utilize services. Because what we know is that in this country, historically, minorities have been the sort of lab rat in terms of any pharmaceutical changes or experimentations, and so there's a paranoia there, and rightly so, in terms of seeking treatment or trying to improve conditions. So I think we have to look at the grand scheme of things if we want to improve health in the community. But a good start could be to go to those communities and actually put health centers there with people who know the community members and who would like to work in those communities instead of people.
Go.
This next question: how can you associate racism and drug trafficking together? And I've spent some time working in mental health and in substance abuse and doing both while working in a prison. And what we know is that when we look at illicit drug use in this country, and we look at who's doing drugs, the majority of those people are not minorities. But yet when we look at drug charges in this country,
Go.
All right, so this next question: how has racism been present in my community? And has that experience been institutional, cultural, or both, and how has it affected me? And I will say that I have lived in many communities and have experienced racism on some degree at different levels. I've lived in the Midwest, the North, the South, and I've even lived on the West Coast for a brief period of time, and I have seen racism rear its head in many facets of life, in my personal dealings and professional dealings, and just in everything. I will say that there has been some institutional racism